May at the Cannes Film Festival won the top prize, the Palme d'Or. And then just 2 days ago, Friday night, like I said, it won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Picture. Then last night, it won the Directors Guild Award from the DGA and the Best Picture from the Producers Guild. But hang on, the hits just keep on coming. It is nominated for 8 BAFTAs, including Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, Editing, and Casting. It is nominated for, hang on, it is nominated for 6 Spirit Awards, including Picture, Director, and it's also getting a Producer's Award. It is nominated for 3 SAG Awards, including Best Cast Ensemble, Actress, and Supporting Actor. And it is nominated, okay, I'm at the end here, it is nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Best Picture, Director, Original Screenplay, Editing, Actress, and Supporting Actors. So like I said, there are 3 people who are feeling better than the Philadelphia Eagles right now. It is our producer. We have 3 producers here. Let's welcome to the stage Alex Coco. Welcome producer Samantha Quan. Please give it up for writer, director, producer, editor, casting, All right, so I mean, look, how was your weekend?
Yeah, amazing. Thanks everybody, and so sorry we're a little late. Yeah, but yeah, it's we barely slept, so we're still processing and catching up and all. Yeah, but it was unexpected and just an incredible honor. For every Critics' Choice, PGA, DGA, just really incredible.
Well, I gotta say, I saw the film for the first time at the Telluride Film Festival, and it instantly became my favorite movie of the year. That's back in like Labor Day weekend, and it stayed that way all through towards the end of the year. So I've been wanting to have this conversation with you all for the last like 5 months. But I know you all worked on Red Rocket together, which came out in 2021, another film that I really, really love. But how did you go? What was sort of the first conversation? So okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's figure out what that is. What informs what this was going to become?
Sure, yeah. Actually, the idea of Anora was sort of on the back burner for a while. The idea of, or the desire to shoot in Brighton Beach and Coney Island and tell a story about the Russian-American community there goes back a ways. Karin Karagulian, who plays Toros in the film, good friend of mine, and also been in all of my films. So we thought we would do this way back in like 2009, 2010, after a film I made called Prince of Broadway. But we just could never figure it out. Then we started collecting stories, hearing things. The Anora plot, in which, yeah, I guess you could say, yeah, see, it's very convoluted. But anyway, it came to us around the Red Rocket time, but we weren't sure it was going to be our next film, because we're not really ever sure until the film that we're working on is put to bed. And then we were in post-production on Red Rocket, and we had a nice distraction. We were asked by a small boutique label called Kate, K-H-A-I-T-E, in New York to do a fashion film in New York City. And they said, do whatever you want. And I said, okay, let's do an homage to Walter Hill's The Warriors, and have a bunch of like girl gangs in Coney Island just going crazy. And they gave us, full freedom. Sean Price Williams shot it on 16. We went to Coney Island and we shot this thing. It's out there. Look for it, it's fun. And but it was Alex and I were standing on the boardwalk in the winter, dead winter, in Coney Island, looking around, saying, "Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. It's like stuck in time. It really does feel like the way it was, and it looks in 1978.
It's not aged."
Yeah, exactly. With all the beautiful landmarks, the Wonder Wheel and the Cyclone, and just that boardwalk. And we said we have to come back here and make a film. This should be our next film. And I think that's really when we moved forward with everything and decided Anora was next.
Okay, so what's interesting is that it's not like you have a script ready. It's like, okay, let's start the casting process. I spoke with Mikey on Friday night. By the way, like 1 hour after you all won this picture, I did a Q&A with Mikey. So that was awesome. She told me that you actually cast her before you even started working on the script.
Yeah, that's true. We did have the idea, and I pretty much had beginning, middle, and end, but we basically greenlit ourselves. We were moving forward with Anora, and I had already seen her in Once Upon a Time and was blown away.
Yeah.
Like, she really made an impression with that film. As some, and we cast her on film. So you're like, someday maybe we'll find a role for her. And then Scream happened. We went out to see Scream opening weekend, and it was so apparent to us that she was our Annie. We were in the theater at Sunset 5, the landmark there, and we didn't even have to discuss it afterwards. In the theater, Sam and I were like, that's our Annie. Yeah, and so we called her agent the second we stepped out. It was a combination of those two performances, because her Scream performance actually, as a young adult in that movie, she's full of attitude, and there's a lot of humor in that performance. And of course, it shows intensity, and she can scream in both of those performances, obviously. And so it was the easiest casting process ever. I didn't want an audition. I knew it just from seeing those two performances. And surprisingly, I knew she was on Better Things, but it's hard for me to watch all series when I'm trying to watch a film a day, So I have to stick to my feature films. And I never knew her work from Better Things. I've been able to catch up since and realize how wonderful she is. But it was really just those two films that dictated it. Yeah.
So Samantha, like when you first had the first conversations with Mikey, what was it about those conversations that you started to go, oh, we gotta put that into film? Because by having those conversations, you're basically including her in your development process, part of the screenwriting process, so to speak. In a way.
Yeah, I think she didn't really have a hand in the writing of the script. However, the first time we met her, she was really gung-ho about wanting, she said, I want to, please give me everything you can so I can, I really want to dive into a character as much as I can, and I would love the opportunity, like, give me everything you can. And so we were lucky because not only is she extremely talented, but she's one of the most dedicated actors I've ever known. And we of course, we set her up with a dance instructor and a dialect coach and things like that, but I don't know how to say this, but like, you can lead a horse to water, but what she did with that was like 1,000 times past what we could ever imagine. When we saw what she did, we were like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Like, there's one thing taking pole dancing classes, and there's another being able to spin around the way she did. She choreographed her own floor dance for Yvonne with her coach. But I mean, she was like, "Can I just show you?" And we're like, "Sure." And because the only line describing it in the script was, Annie shows Yvonne her dancer's flexibility. That was it.
That's the worst written line in the entire screenplay. Oh my God, it's so embarrassing. They would make fun of me on set with that line. But anyway, no, yeah, she was pre-cast, meaning like I pitched her that idea over my first coffee meeting with her, and then she agreed to do the movie, and then I was like, okay, now I'm going to go write the screenplay. So it was really wonderful to use, her face was in my head, her aura was in my face, my head. I was able to text her and let her give her updates on where the screenplay was going. So it was that was really how, I think it was just her presence that really helped me develop the Annie character.
So Alex, I want to ask about going from Red Rocket to Anora. This is the sort of the biggest scope you've had for a film yet, but it's still very, very indie. But filming around New York, especially in the locations that Sean described, what were the unique challenges as going from Red Rocket to Anora?
Yeah, I think everything was scaled up a bit, just in the subject matter. Just the characters having private airplanes and mansions, and characters that need to look like they have money. That's like a big. Just costs more to acquire those things. But it's interesting. We still, like, even though that was a requirement for this film, and it was a lot easier to get that on the screen in like a Red Rocket or whatever, in some ways, with the location we shot it. The mansion that we used, like, the person who owned the mansion, like, totally let us in. Like, he was, we were able to shoot, like, in his, like, him and his wife's, like, giant closet, you know, where they had all this, like, brand designer clothing, like, all these, like, they were like, yeah, whatever, you can use the Gucci robes if you want, you can, like, you know, it was like, and we just were like, great, this is awesome production value, we're not paying for this, like, this is awesome.
Deleted scene on the Criterion Blu-ray, by the way.
Yeah, but you do see the Gucci robes, though, there is a, you know. Versace. I don't know anything about fashion, but yeah, no, we use those, and yeah, so it was interesting. It was kind of cool to like still use our own, you know, like our Sean Bakery tactics, where we're like kind of just stealing and getting stuff for free somehow. You know, but at a bigger scale. Yeah.
Well, also, can I add, luckily for us, because we had worked with Kate, we were able to reach out to them, and they, you know, they lent us things to wear. So we were really lucky with some of the expensive things. We were like, hi, can you please? And they'd be like, we'd love to. And we're
bringing
very
Kate back.
thankful,
Yeah, they helped us out a lot, which is cool.
So when I was watching the film, you know, back in Telluride, the actor who played Ivan was so good. I'm like, he's got to be just like this guy. No one can really act that great. How did you come to cast Ivan, and what was it about the audition, assuming that there was an audition, that really stood out to you?
Well, it was a self-tape, actually. That was the audition, and he won us over with that. He came through Yura Borisov, who plays Igor in the film. He basically recommended him, because I was going in the direction of stunt casting with that role. I was going in the direction of like a young Russian rapper influencer who basically was Ivan, okay, or is Ivan, and there are a few of those guys on Instagram I follow, and and Mark knew exactly who that person was and was like, I got it, I can do that. Mark, yes, is not that person, and is very classically trained, an incredibly just sweet human being, full of humor, class clown at times, extremely smart, full of ideas. It was his idea. That flip on the bed was his idea. Yeah, and the self-tape that he sent in was probably, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. It was, you want to tell the story?
Okay, this is a little bit long. So anyways, what happened was we had a meeting with him over Zoom to meet him, and because there is a lot of nudity in the movie because of the sex, we had to make sure that he was okay with it. So I said, are you okay with nudity because of the sex? And he just kind of blankly looked, and he goes, yes. And I was like, are you sure? And he goes, yes. And then we weren't kind of sure if he understood or whatever, and 2 weeks later, he still hadn't sent the tape. And so I contacted him, and I said, are you interested? Because if you are you going to send the tape? And he said, oh yes, I'm so sorry, I'll send the tape. And the next day, I got an email from him, and I opened it up, and it was a beautiful window, like looking over Moscow, and it started a close-up on the back of his head, and it pulls out, and he's wearing sunglasses, and he's smoking a vape, and it pulls out even more, and he's completely naked. The hat and the glasses, and I shut the
Facing away from me.
Yes, facing away from the camera.
He did have a beanie on.
And he was facing away, and I slammed my computer down, and I screamed for Sean, and I said, you have to come here because this is amazing, and I know it's going to be the best thing we've ever done. And it was, and I always thought it was because I had asked him if he was okay with nudity, but later I found out in an interview that he said the reason why he did it naked was because Ivan was a very wealthy guy, and he wasn't wealthy, so he had no clothes that Ivan would wear. So he just decided to go in the nude.
That's really smart.
He was totally the right guy.
But for the actors out there, not.
Yeah, he
do
said,
that.
don't please
Don't naked self-tapes.
When I watch your films, like I know, like there's this, that no one makes movies like you. They're completely unique. You know, going from Tangerine to Florida Project to Red Rocket, obviously to this. But with Anora, because of like all the locations you shot, especially at the strip club and everything like that,
can you talk, Alice, about the production design, the costume design, to help really help make this movie look unique?
Yeah, I mean, we have really great department heads. We did an excellent job. Stephen Phelps, our production designer, and Jocelyn Pierce, our costume designer. Yeah, no, they both of them. I worked with them on previous films. A movie called The Sweet East, which we had here actually, like a year or two ago, and then a couple other things. But they know how to stretch a dollar. Those two, you know, and they really know how to figure out ways to I don't know, to get money on the screen. I mean, and Stephen Phelps, our production designer, is just such like from top to bottom. He's not just a designer. He's not just like making plans. He's also like sawing and building and doing all these like crafty things. Remember they put like wax or something down on the ground for the ice when Bache's character Garnick slips, and they were like burning it into to look like, I don't know, they're just like, it always amazed me every single day, like it's just the stuff that they could do, and they could turn around so fast. So yeah, we hired them and just trusted them, and they really, they had a small budget and they pulled it off. I don't know, I mean, you have to ask them, like it's amazing, what they're able to do.
And Ross Broder, who is our location manager, got me all those locations. The mansion was found because I was writing the screenplay here in West Hollywood, and I Googled biggest and best mansion in Brighton Beach. That thing pops up, and it was because it was on the market 5 years ago. It was on Zillow, and Zillow has like hundreds of photos. So I was able to see the interior of this mansion and just almost now start to adapt my screenplay to it. And I told Ross, I'm like, you have to get me this. You have to secure this location. And he did, and he found headquarters, which really changed everything as well, because the initial draft of the film was more of a traditional strip club with stages and poles. And because he found this incredibly unique, what's called like a lounge club or a lap dance club, that really changed almost the structure of the film in many ways. So yeah, I owe this crew so much. The department heads, they're all incredible artists on their own.
Yeah, and I will say, like, so much of Sean's movies are about locations. It's like finding real, authentic locations and real places, and sometimes not trying to shut them down. So we're working in live locations. So sometimes we can't manipulate them too much, but I don't know. It's very fun to kind of like combine that a little bit. So sometimes it's more just finding a great place that has the right look and then zhuzhing it up a little bit. But I don't know. I love like this hybrid nature of like going to the strip club, shutting it down, controlling the environment with the extras, and bringing in some extra production design and lighting, and then having like 5 people out on the street and crashing, like a restaurant, and just shooting,
Or the billiard hall.
Yeah, the billiard hall. Yeah, just going, and we literally the billiard hall. Yeah, we had permission. We went. We just like found our way into the corner. People were just playing pool, not even paying any mind to us. And we just started shooting, just quietly, and just if we shot with people, we'd get their release, or we'd ask people if they wanted to be in it, and some people did, some people didn't, and it was like, I don't know. It's very interesting to take this like big controlled approach to filmmaking, but then also combine it with this like so uncontrolled. It's such like an organized chaos, and we're just trying to like, I don't know. Sean's great at just like trying to get it to go in the right direction. Luckily he's the editor and he's the writer, so he can figure it out, while we're shooting it. Yeah.
Well, that's a real great point. So I'm really curious, like when you are writing, how does being a producer influence your writing?
Well, I guess going into this, we kind of knew the approximate budget we could get from our financiers, Filmation. Especially, I think, when I told them, yeah, it stars Mikey Madison and a bunch of Russians. And they were like, wait, who? I was like, that girl who shows up in the last 15 minutes of Once Upon a Time. It's not the most sellable cast. I mean, now she's going to be, yeah, right, yeah. But going into it, we were at our cap of what we could get. So, I take that in mind. But at the same time, I also want to be creative and get everything I want to and tell the story I want to tell. So I rely a lot on these two, where they're going to never say no, and they're going to figure out a way of making it happen. But maybe, there's a subconscious thing in there where I know the budget and I can't have like a major car crash. I can't have like a major set piece that I know would cost $1 million on its own. Maybe.
Can I add, actually, it does really help that Sean has to switch to his producer cap sometimes, because he knows that if he asks for something that is a big set piece here that maybe is going to cost a lot of money, he's also thinking about, with us, the ways that we can cut down in other places.
Sure.
So, go ahead,
I was
please.
gonna say, like, you mentioned the car crash thing. In Red Rocket, we have a car crash, and we kept kicking that scene like down the schedule because we were trying to figure out how are we gonna do this, how are we gonna do this. I was trying to make money, or to make room in the budget for it, find money for it, and try to find solutions. And eventually, we presented what we had to him, which was like just like
Especially a huge pylon.
Yeah,
Huge
but it was
pylon.
like 2 cars and like it just wasn't what he imagined at all. We had an 18-wheeler in the mix, we did our best. But anyway, yeah, we got on a call and with our stunt people and with VFX, and Sean realized how small it was gonna actually be, and then we finished the Zoom with the team, and then he got up and went out onto the patio and took the plastic chair and smashed it into 100 different pieces.
Usually you don't get violent. That was the only
And
time.
then he got it out of his system, and then we were like, all right, now we got to figure out how we're gonna do it. So then we came up with this great solution, which was we did it all in VFX and.
Not seeing the actual pile up.
Yeah, not
we
seeing
had
the
to
pile up.
adjust the writing, essentially.
Yeah.
Can I also say, like, it wasn't like a crazy violent thing. He might have been smashing it, but we were all laughing, and Alex was videotaping it at the same time. So it wasn't like, oh my God, it was, we were like, ah, and he was
It was hilarious, yeah.
So over these years, since I've been having conversations like this with directors and editors, editing, I feel like, is like the unsung hero of the filmmaking process.
It truly is.
And I mean, that is where so many directors who also edit say that that's where they find the movie. So as a director, how much are you thinking about the editing process while you're actually directing?
It really depends on the scene or set piece. There are some cuts that are actually written into the screenplay, like knowing that at the end of that home invasion scene, it was going to be a smash cut to her with the scarf and the gagging her, stuff like that. There were definite pre-planned. There was definitely some pre-planned cutting. But then at the same time, there are also scenes like the opening in which I'm just trying to establish that club.
Yeah.
And I shot it in a way that was so docu that I knew that I wanted to incorporate a docu style editing process down the line. So that was left up to just like amassing a lot of footage and then almost a documentarian type editing approach later. So yeah, it truly depends. But you're right. I mean, editing for me is definitely, when it's all 3, writing, directing, and editing, it's that third is just as important as the other 2/3. It gives it the feel, it gives it the vibe, the structure, the pacing, the flow, everything. I mean, your decisions on whether or not to use music, everything.
Do you jump right into it when like you wrap? Do you start editing the next day? Or
No.
do you-
I don't know, I wish you would, yeah, but.
Yeah, I did that DGA symposium the other day, and with the other nominated directors for the DGA this year, and I realized, wow, I should probably change up my process because it's really damaging to everybody involved. I take a long time off because I've had that luxury throughout my career. Up to Tangerine, I was self-financing those movies anyway, so I was able to, wait for as long as I wanted to wait. With Tangerine, when we shot around January, we knew we had a whole year until the Sundance submission, basically. And so Mark and Jay Duplass were like, take your time, and I did. I waited 3 months before even looking at footage. And that's the same with Anora. I waited 3 months before looking at anything. I never watched dailies on set. I just ask, hey, is everything in focus and is everything exposed? And they give me sometimes stills, like Drew will share a screen grab, and I'm like, that's exactly what I want, thank you. But I don't look at dailies. And so what happens is that over those 3 months, I get distance from the material, enough distance where going back into it, it's almost like, oh, I've almost forgotten what I've shot. And I know what I've written though, I know the story I have to tell, but it's like, oh wow, okay, let's start from the beginning and let this, and I don't do ensemble cut. I don't believe in them because I hate bad first impressions, and an ensemble will almost always be a bad first impression. So I start from the beginning and I go fine, and I go one scene at a time and I polish it, even including that sound design. And I think that helps me because, or that's my style because that's my process because I feel it growing and evolving, and I can now gauge where I can have tonal shifts and everything like that. And for this movie that has so many of those, it really told me, okay, now I can get the broader in comedy. Now I should bring it back to reality. Now I have to get more serious, et cetera, et cetera. And, but it drives them crazy. It drives Film Nation crazy. And it's quite stressful because you don't know whether you've made a good movie until the last day of editing when you tag that last shot on. And it's like, okay, it works.
I want to talk about those tonal shifts. Because the first time I saw the movie, so we have some people who are seeing the movie for the first time. So, you know, you're watching the part where it's the courting and the marriage, and it feels like a Cinderella story. And then the home invasion scene is when, you know, the shit hits the fan, everything changes. And that scene is just so wild that when I saw it for the first time, I was laughing. Like, the thing is, I thought, like, I kind of caught myself, and I went, am I supposed to be laughing? Like, but then it kept going and going, and got, like, more outrageous, and then, like, the rest of the film, you know, it's like, even like the scene, like, at the diner, when you know, Karen's like, you know, like, there's no respect, none of you people, like, that stuff was hilarious. So I would love to hear about the filming, because I feel like that home invasion scene is when everything changes. So, like, setting it up, the challenge is to, like, really pull it off, and then finally shooting the scene. Start with the setting it up.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the set piece. That was the big thing that we were all sort of anticipating. That was the longest thing that, you know, took Sean to write and to really make work. And then there was rewriting as well. And we had to shoot over 8 days in a mansion with huge windows. So Drew and our gaffer, Priscilla, was like constantly just battling like the light and just making sure it was all even. We were very fortunate because the weather, although it varied a little bit, it was pretty consistent, so we were able to mostly make it work and not have to rely too heavily on color or, you know, or blocking windows and lighting too much. But yeah, it was kind of a miracle for that reason. But yeah, no, it was just kind of leaving space for Sean and the actors to like make it work. You know, we did some rehearsals over the weekend and whatnot, but Sean was rewriting, and there was a day where we felt like we were pretty good. And Quan, who's like also like professional, like he's not, you know, he's an actor, but like it's not his only profession, so he would have to get out of work to come to set, you know, like he manages some like furniture stores in Manhattan. Rugs, yeah. So we'd get him out of work, and then he would have to show up to set, and it was important, it was precious time that we had with him, you know, every day. And then yeah, and there was like a big day that he had a lot of lines, and there was, you know, pretty much everybody in the scene, you know, except Mark, who, you know, Hibon's character had already left. And yeah, Sean rewrote everything the night before, and none of the actors knew their lines when we showed up. He ordered the dialogue, and then Sean was running around being like, he burst through the door with pages. Like he was like, I rewrote everything. It's perfect. I improved it. Don't worry. And I was like, great. And everyone was like, okay. And then he's like, all right, I'll run it through. I changed everything. I'll run it through. Well, it was like dialogue, but he was like, you know, but it was a lot. But he was like, I'll run it through. He starts running around and like going through it with everybody, and it's so much simpler. It's so much simpler. And then IDP Drew turned to me and goes, this is so much more complicated.
And also poor Quan, who, like you said, like he's in all of Sean's movies, but this was a huge day. It was like monologues. It's where he's talking to Andy and everything. So I talked to him, you know, earlier in the morning, and he's like, I think I'm okay. I think I'm ready. And I was like, you're gonna be great. And he comes in, and Sean's like, I changed everything. And he saw the blood drain from his face.
So then it was 6 hours of rehearsal, you know what I mean? And we had scheduled a like 13-hour day. You know what I mean? Like the scenes, like that's how the 88 beat out. So then it was like, okay, great, now we have to shoot 13 hours, you know, which we already planned on going to OT, but now we have 6 hours to do it. So we had, basically we just had to accommodate more in the back end, but it was rough, yeah. It was all good. No, honestly, for me, as for us as producers, just to anecdotally, like when Sean does stuff like that, it's like we know that he's making it better. We know this is his process, so we're prepared for this. We want to accommodate this. No, it's true. Okay, maybe I shouldn't tell him this, but look, if the scene's better, then like, yeah, let's go. You know.
How many days did it take to shoot that scene, and what was the biggest challenge to shoot that scene?
Well, I think that, we scheduled for 6, but when I did that, they added on an extra 2. So it took 8 days altogether, and I think the challenge was just we shot it in order. So it was just staying on those tracks, you know, staying on the rails, making sure that there weren't gonna be any hiccups. Because, you know, also, I was kind of editing in my head. There was timing going on with Toros coming from the church and what exactly was happening before he arrives. And then once he's there, it was how that negotiation between him and Annie was going to take place. And it was just beat by beat. I would say, I don't know if this was a challenge, but going into the stunts, I didn't know until we were there that Mikey and Euro would do their own stunts.
Oh.
Yeah, we actually did have a stunt coordinator and a stunt double, but Mikey was like, I'm gonna do it. And I'm like, yeah, great, please. I would love to see your face when all of that is happening. And that moment where they go around the couch and the lamp goes down and the other lamp goes down and then she has to blindly kick the vase, just that was incredible to watch from behind the monitor. Because when we rehearse it, of course, it's quarter speed. Everybody's going at quarter speed, but when it's happening for the first time, I was so incredibly impressed by Mikey and Yura. We were all jaw dropped. Yeah.
So now that you've seen the film, especially the first timers, how do you spread the word about a movie? Obviously, you go on social media. So, you know, you're still on Facebook, go on Facebook, you know, Instagram.
They're not on Facebook, I don't.
You know, you and back, you're still using X, knock yourself down. I gotta tell you, again, I was so excited to have this conversation with you, like 5 months ago, but especially this weekend. So bravo, congratulations.